we need to know our kids. We need to know the whole of our kids.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby. Not every light is gonna guide you.
So, Dr. Kathy, today in the Celebrate Kids podcast, in this daily segment, Facing the Dark, I want to talk about something that I think some parents might engage or even see in some of their friends' kids. And it often starts with maybe something that we've noticed, maybe a tick or a shoulder shrug that won't stop, maybe a throat clear that happens maybe 15 times in an hour. For some parents, the first time that we notice a tick in our kids, it can cause panic in a way that shows up powerfully before we even have information on what's going on. Experts want parents to know that when their kids have these different tics, they're actually remarkably common. About 22% of preschoolers and nearly 8% of elementary kids at any given time have a tic, a cough, a twitch that they do, something kind of that is involuntary. It's not really a discipline issue. And for most kids, it improves significantly by resolve as they grow into adulthood. But what's striking is how many parents really feel nervous about this and actually have some responses that really shape their experience as parents and even their comfortability as parents, but can also engage the kids. There's a child psychiatrist that I read recently. Her name's Michelle Pierce, and she says that tics are, she calls it suggestible, that drawing attention to them, even out of love, often makes them worse. The better path is actually taking the spotlight off the tic and putting it back on the whole child and understanding more about our child as the tic is present. Now, Dr. Pierce makes the point that constantly drawing this attention, even with concern, even with love, does make it more pronounced and can almost damage a kid's self-esteem, their understanding of who they are, because they identify with the tic. It becomes a primary identity in their eyes and ultimately becomes something that they feel like their family only sees them as. Now, in your book, No More Perfect Kids, you talk about how we can help kids develop a healthy and accurate identity rather than ones that's just are shaped by a trait or by a struggle. I want to dive into this and explore this a little bit. How can parents make sure that a kid who might have a tic still grows up feeling known and valued for who they are?
Like with anything, Wayne, we have to pay attention to the whole child. So I would say, let me back up and say maybe first that it's no one's fault. Like you have to make sure for you to raise a healthy child who grows up valued for who they are, not for what they do. You have to understand that this is like involuntary. It's not your fault, their fault. They're not sick. Like those are important things to know in the knowing of your knowing, important things to say out loud, important things to tell the grandparents and the in-laws and the babysitters and the coaches and certainly the teachers, if you're not homeschooling these kids, to make sure that they know that it is just a part of who they are. And isn't it encouraging to know that most of it will go away? Let the kids know that too, that it's a phase and that in most cases it will diminish greatly, possibly go away entirely. I think we need to know our kids. We need to know the whole of our kids. Just like whether we're talking about the gender identity crisis, we're talking about, ADHD, ADD, dyslexia, dysgraphia, OCD, all what I call the dangerous Ds, whatever we're talking about, any kind of a label, any kind of a health issue, like that's just a slice of who they are. Kids have an intellectual identity, an emotional identity, a social identity, a spiritual identity, and yes, a physical identity, but we can't afford to draw so much attention to it that they think that that is the big, loud identity, because then that's going to scare them when they realize that there's something uniquely different about them. I think we have to make sure that we help them identify purpose and competence. And, they can't overcome this, and so it can be frustrating. I'm not going to, let me say this, and I don't mean to equate this at all, but most of our listeners know that I have some back issues and shoulder issues and a foot issue. I went to the chiropractor today and we were talking and I said, again, I'm not giving into it. Like, it doesn't matter how much pain I'm in. I'm not staying home. I want to take care of myself so that it ideally doesn't get worse, but it is a part of me, but it does not define me. It is not what I want people to think about when they think of me. They might pray for me if they know me well enough, and maybe our listeners will. That'll be great. But I'm so much more than that. Do I let people know that? Do I always talk about it? There are days I do with some people because they're my inner circle. But I think maybe that's relevant as well, making sure that your kids know all of who they are so that they don't over depend upon the one thing. And you know what? Here's another idea, Wayne. I wonder if this exists. If we could find a biography or an autobiography of somebody with a tic who successfully navigated life, read it. Like underline it, read it annually. Those books exist for people with ADHD, people with dyslexia. There are famous people and not famous people who have written books or have had articles written about them that you can read to kids so that they have a role model and they discover that this isn't going to define me. Go on the hunt, research it, find somebody that you can study, give your kids a model that they can hope in.
I love that, Dr. Kathy. I think that's really helpful. In the article, one of the things that they talk about, it's something that Dr. Pierce highlights, is that a lot of times these tic behaviors, at least from the research, they've found that they're becoming more pronounced or more prevalent, especially through social media use. There's a phenomenon that was coined a couple years ago called TikTok tics, where people would have almost like Tourette's-like symptoms or presentations in their TikTok videos. And people that were watching TikTok a lot, the kids started to emulate those as they were watching this. Help me understand a little bit of how we should, engage some of those things that are really shaping our kids and their behaviors, especially when they are, emulating that. What should we know about that power for our kids? And how do we talk to them, maybe if they've developed some of those tics naturally just from social media or other people that they're watching or viewing?
This is so important, isn't it? If a child has not displayed a tic and all of a sudden does display a tic, hello, you get them off of social media and see if the tic goes away. You don't know for sure that the tic was caused by the content that they were watching, but there is research, I've heard it before, that would indicate that. You could actually, look at their device, find out what they were watching, who are they following, ask them about it. Many of them might not put two and two together and recognize it, but if you bring it up in a kind way, maybe they'll be able to admit to you, and then you're like, then therefore, obviously, you can't follow this person anymore because look what it's doing to you. And it's such a profound example of the influence. Oh my goodness. So we have got to protect our children and their minds and their hearts, their spirits and their souls. Yes, we have to. We have to be alert and we have to say no and we have to be strong. And it doesn't matter if they don't like you for a season. It can't be about that. This is a life issue.
Dr. Kathy, in the article, one of the kids that talked about having a tic, this kid said, quote, "My body can't help it, but there's nothing wrong with me."
Mm.
And I want to know, when our kids are experiencing maybe some tics, or we, engage or find a kid like that, maybe be at church or at the gym or something like that, that might have a tic, what are some practical things that we can do, maybe especially kind of with our own kids, to help our kids build like a secure understanding of who they are when they face something that they actually don't believe that they can control, and this is really out of their control? These tics aren't things that they naturally want to do, but they're doing it. How do we help our kids build a solid identity when they can't control these happenings?
I love what this child says. My body can't help it, but there's nothing wrong with me. We teach our kids to say that or to say something similar to that. My body can't help it. I'm not in control. It's not contagious. It doesn't mean I'm stupid. Depending upon if your kid has been bullied, teased about something related to the tic, then you teach your child to think something healthy about herself and to verbalize it when she feels that it would be a safe decision for her to do so. I think it's super important. And I think we talk about what's good about them, what's quote unquote normal about them. And Wayne, what if we also taught these kids to ask questions about other people? to maybe get the eyes off of themselves. So let's say that there's, your son with tics and there's 2 or 3 friends and somebody notices the tic and asks what's happening or even laughs about it. And your kid says, yeah, my body can't help it, but there's nothing really wrong with me. Hey, James, tell me about your soccer game on Saturday. So what if we could teach our kids to do a redirect of the conversation, be curious about someone else and something else? It's not always going to work. Some kid is going to stay fixated on the tic. But I think giving our kids help with conversations might be a blessing.
As Dr. Kathy and I talked today, it reminded me of a passage that comes out of 2 Corinthians chapter 12. I'll begin reading at verse 7. Therefore, in order to keep me from being conceited, I was given a thorn in my flesh. It was a messenger from Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults and hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. This passage is something that Paul writes, and it's something that is really explanatory to what it means to struggle with something that you can't kind of get rid of. He calls it a thorn. In the Greek, they call it a skolopos, or this idea of something precisely sharp and that is lodged in a specific place, that is an irritant. It's not something that can be alleviated by something. It's persistent. It's almost an embedded presence. It's not something that Paul could simply will away through greater discipline or stronger faith, but it was something that actually stayed. Paul's posture towards it actually shifts from being something that was bothering him to something that he saw as God really drew him nearer to God. And when he does this, it's almost like the thorn disappears, even in his writing, not because the thorn was gone, but because of how Paul understood what the purpose or the point or the reality of the thorn in his flesh was doing. He talks about boasting all the more gladly so that Christ's power can rest on him. It's a radical reversal that we see, even from how his culture would have viewed this, but how our culture views things like tics, where we want to kind of make it normal or make it something that is natural. Paul says that these are things that actually should drive us to a deeper understanding of who God is and to a better understanding of who we are in Christ. I hope you picked that up in what Dr. Kathy talked about today, that these are things that we can identify, maybe sometimes even like mourn that we have them, but at the same time understand that God is good in the middle of it. And so we see that a kid with a tic isn't broken. When we have challenges, we're not broken. It's that God is doing something that's real and significant. It's going to be something that's going to change really our trust and understanding of God's goodness as we fixate on Christ, not on the tic or on the thorn in our flesh. I think the instinct for us oftentimes is to fix things, to maybe sometimes even to be silent. We want to make the visible difference disappear as if there's some kind of, I don't know, it's like it's not even there. That's a natural parenting impulse. But Paul's thorn reminds us that the goal is not merely the absence of difficulty and maybe even to erase difficulty. The goal actually, and I think for us as parents, is actually to teach our kids to understand the dynamic of what this means, that the weakness doesn't qualify them from being fully and securely loved. The tic doesn't change the fact that God has a great plan for them and knows them, but actually he's drawing them nearer to them through these challenges or through these realities they might be facing or these differences that they have. I think helping our kids reframe it in the way that Paul reframes his thorn in the flesh is actually a dynamic that's going to be a bright light and can shine and cut through the darkness and of the uncertainty of what they might be facing with this. I hope that's an encouragement for you, and I hope all the things that we do here at Celebrate Kids are an encouragement for you. I'm so glad you joined us today on the Celebrate Kids podcast in this daily segment, Facing the Dark. For Dr. Kathy Cook, my name is Wayne Stender. Glad you joined us, and we're looking forward to seeing you here again tomorrow.